Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be back on the Foxbody. We're going to try to attempt again to try to get this miss out of it. I've got a couple more pieces that I'm going to try to see if it will work. If not, then we're going to go further into it. But let's try some simple stuff first and see if that helps. Let's get to it. All right guys, here we are at the engine bay once again. I'm gonna go ahead and check my meter. I've got my ground on there. I'm gonna put my positive lead on the battery and we have 12.2 volts. So what I've come to conclusion of trying before I dig into this fuel is the coolant temperature sensor. I started reading up on this a little bit, and a coolant temperature sensor can cause erratic idling and bad performance, and it can affect EGR flow and stuff like that. And I'm not throwing any codes whatsoever except for my EGR. And I thought if I'm throwing an EGR valve code, then possibly my coolant temperature sensor could be throwing that off, and that's why I'm getting bad throttle response and idling issues, which I will say that my surge on idling is a lot better. It don't surge and stuff, but I still have kind of bad performance like throttle response and stuff like that. This is a $15 part to change this little coolant sensor right here. So I've got it. I went ahead and bought one. I thought $15 is worth trying. Part number, well, you could say TX6T, but it might be the M21266. It's a little like I said, $15 part. And it's just got this bronze or brass sensor here on it. I'm going to pull this one out and see if there's like corrosion and stuff on it, and it could be bad. But before I pull that sensor, what I'd like to do is I got the key on and I've got my meter set up. So what I'm going to do here, if I can get to it, the engine's still really hot, and let me unplug this and let's test and see if we're getting voltage to this plug before we do anything. Okay, I got this sensor unplugged. I hope you can see this meter. So I think the green wire is the one that's got the voltage, and it is coming in on, I think, this side over here. Yeah, so it looks like it's a 4.71 volts. So we are getting voltage. I wasn't for sure if that was a 5 volt reference or not, but 4.71 is probably good voltage for that. So now what I'm going to do is go ahead and try to remove that plug. So you can see here, it's got some buildup and looks pretty old. I think that's probably the factory one. And the connections even have some brownish look to them. So let's put the new one in. Okay, we got our sensor back on, got the vent in, got the oil cap on. So let's go inside, start it, and see what it looks like. All right, here we go. Let's give it a few minutes to see if it figures itself out. I can't really test drive it this evening because I don't want to get it out. If you look, it's like storming and thundering and everything else. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drive it to work tomorrow. So I'm just going to leave it like this, drive it tomorrow, see if it levels out, right now it seems like it's idling pretty good. I can't really tell a really bad miss in it or anything. It sounds a little bit like it might still have a small miss, not sure, and it may clear up. So I'm gonna, like I said, drive it tomorrow, see what it looks like after it cycles through and gives the computer time to recalibrate everything and reread everything and get up to temperature and all that. And hopefully this thing levels out, but you can see that we're idling around the 800 range. And our temp, you know, we're still just a little bit cold. We ain't even completely warmed up yet. I'll know more here in a couple days. I'll fill you in. All right, guys, we are back this evening after work. I drove the Foxbody today. It's a beautiful day today. And the last thing we did was yesterday when it was storming and I didn't really want to get the car out in the rain. I changed the coolant temperature sensor. The coolant temperature sensor, I think, fixed the car for the most part. It's kind of crazy that a $15 part made that big of a difference. It had really good throttle response. It idles great. It's idling around 750 in that range. Could be 800. It's right in that area. It idles smooth. I'm really happy with what that coolant temperature sensor did, which is kind of blows my mind, to be honest with you. Which, when I started reading about it, and it's saying that it affects the EGR flow and it can cause erratic idling and different things like that, I thought, well, it's $15, you know, it's worth a shot. Let's just try it before we start pulling the intake and getting all the fuel injectors and stuff like that, because that was my next thing that I was going to look into, was pulling the intake, taking the injectors out and seeing if they was flowing good or anything like that, or just even buying brand new injectors and putting all new injectors in it. But I'm kind of glad I didn't. I'm glad that I just went ahead and tried a coolant temperature sensor before I got into replacing all that. The car is doing really, really good. It's like 98%, I'll say that. I would like to fine tune it to where it runs extremely well for me, like a brand new one. So, I mean, I'll probably keep doing things to it. Like, I'll probably end up replacing all the vacuum lines and stuff like that. Even though I didn't detect anything with the smoke test, I would still like to go ahead and replace them, because they do look dry rotted and cracked, and that may help some. I mean, that may just dial it in even more. And one other thing I would like to do would be upgrade this alternator. I notice, like, when I roll down the windows or anything like that, or you pull any type of load on this, you can see the battery gauge kind of not like bottom out, but it will drop a little bit and then come back up, which is probably fairly normal for these cars. But I thought about putting a higher amperage alternator on it, just upgrading that at some point. It's probably not at the top of my list right now, but it's something I probably will look to in the future. And then I will just do your standard tune-up stuff, like I may do a antifreeze flush. I may end up changing the fuel filter, you know, just the regular type maintenance, just to really help the car. And I may end up putting a cold air intake on this thing, just to help it breathe a little bit better. So a quick rundown on this video of everything that I went through trying to get this situated. When I first bought the car was idling all over the place. I mean, it was surging bad. Within, I mean, almost 1,000 RPMs band, surging all the way down from, it'd go down to 500, all the way up to 17, 1800. Sometimes it even hit 2,000 before it'd come down. There was a couple of times the car died when I first bought it. So I took the throttle body off and I cleaned it. I cleaned the EGR and I cleaned the idle air control valve, and I put it all back together. That helped. It ran a little bit smoother then, and I never did have it dial me anymore after that. but it still had some surging issues. So then I kept digging into it. I found the broke wire to the TPS and the EGR. I wasn't getting any voltage to either one of those, so neither one was reading. So I fixed that, and that really started dialing in that surge issue I was having. It started getting to where it would only surge a couple hundred RPMs, but it was still surging a little bit. And then I put a new idle air control valve and a MAP sensor on it. And once I did that, pretty much my surge went away. I wasn't surging at all anymore. It was idling, still idling a little high. It was idling around the 900 RPM range, but I did adjust my idle a little bit, because when I was trying to get this thing running, I did mess with the idle screw, so that, you know, messed it up a little bit. So what I did was I unplugged the idle air control valve, and then I adjusted the idle where I wanted it, which was around 700, 750. And once I adjusted it with the idle air control valve unplugged, then I cut the car off, and then I plugged the idle air control valve up and started the car and let it reset itself. And now the car idles, you know, it was idling about 800 in that ballpark. And then I was still having hesitation and a little bit of like a miss in it. And I didn't even think about the coolant temperature sensor. So I replaced that, and that pretty much took the hesitation out of it. The car has really good throttle response. I'm not going to say the hesitation is 100% gone, but the hesitation is probably like I said before, like 98% gone. It is running tremendously better. But hopefully when I start doing some other stuff, that will even improve more. I'm probably being a little too meticulous about how this is running, you know, because most people would probably, the way it's running right now, most people would probably be completely content with it. But I'd really like to dial her on in some. And maybe when I start doing the vacuum lines and all that, that will hopefully dial the car in. So I hope this video helps somebody with troubleshooting their problems. You can see what I replaced. I tried to replace one thing at a time and see how the car reacted to that. So hopefully you won't have to buy all these sensors. So if you have some hesitation and a little bit of bad throttle response, you know, it might be worth buying like a $15 temperature coolant sensor and replacing it just to see if it would fix it. You know, if you're having surge issues, I would probably lean toward the EGR, the MAP sensor, possibly the idle air control valve. To be honest with you, I'm not even sure that I needed to replace that idle air control valve. The one I had was dirty, and I cleaned it out and I put it back on. I don't know, it didn't change a whole lot. It actually idled higher when I put the new idle air control valve on, and that's when I had to start adjusting everything. And I'm not sure that the EGR was bad. The one I had was built up and the plunger was stuck. I cleaned it out and got the plunger unstuck, and it was holding vacuum. There's a possibility that the coolant temperature sensor was causing the EGR to throw a code. So that is debatable there. I do have one more sensor here in the front. It's an air temperature sensor. I went ahead and bought it too while I was at it because it was like $12, and that will pretty much replace most of my sensors that I have up on the top. The car, like I said in one of my other videos, the car sat for a couple of years, so I don't know if they got dirt and grime on them and where they wasn't circulating, maybe they just dried up and crusted up and caused a lot of bad readings. But it seems like as I'm replacing all this stuff, the car's getting better and better and better, which is a good sign. The engine feels healthy. I don't hear any knocks, ticks, or anything like that. It sounds really good. One thing that I am going to have to work on this car is the exhaust. I do not have any tailpipes from the mufflers back. It's got headers, goes down to my cats, and I've got the mid pipe is a H pipe into, I think, Flowmasters, and then they're cut off right behind the Flowmasters. So I am going to have to get some tailpipes put on, or possibly I may end up buying a catback exhaust, and I'll probably end up going back with Flowmasters if I do, but I would like to try to cut a corner there and just put the tailpipes that go over the rear and have them dump back there. It's just a lot of things that I want to do to this car. Now I'm just glad that I can move forward to other things. But with that being said, I really hope that this may help somebody diagnose something on their car. Feel free to leave me a comment or shoot me a message. I should have an email down in the description below, and I'll try to put a link in the description for these sensors as well. That way you can check them out and read about them a little bit and see if that might be something you would be interested in for your car. But feel free to message me and ask me something if you know, and I'll try to answer it the best of my ability. If I don't have the answer, I'll try to get the answer for you. I appreciate you watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.